This is the Marcia Week Show, and we're coming to you live from Barbados. Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. This is Marcia Weeks, and you are watching the Marcia Weeks Show. We're coming to you live on location from Barbados, in particular, St. Philip, beautiful St. Philip, and it is bright and sunny outside. And you might hear some noise happening because they're doing some work on the road works happening in Barbados and definitely in St. Philip leading up to Sam Lord's Castle, because that is supposed to be opening sometime soon. Well, welcome again to everybody who's watching us. Number 2, digitization, data, and distrust in Barbados and the Caribbean. This is something happening all over the region. And yesterday's show, oh my goodness, there were just so many bombshells that were dropped. And trust me, some bombshells going to drop today. So I need you to be sharing. I need you to share. This is important. We come on here, guys, not because, we just want to come on, but, my guests and I work here because we believe there's something that we have to share that can help the average person that's watching. Hi, Althea Hines Cartlet. Hi, Althea. Welcome. I hope, Althea, you got yesterday's show. I really hope you did. And today, Althea, guess what? We are connected up with Caribvision. Oh my goodness, to our family there in Caribvision. Thank you for tuning in. Right now, we're going live into 16 different Caribbean countries. And I just want to say thank you, Caribvision, for making that possible. We're also live on YouTube. Callie B, I see you're watching me from YouTube. And Callie, if you have not subscribed to that page, please subscribe. Because of the nature of what I do, sometimes I get kicked off of various platforms and then I have to restart, Kali. I have to restart my whole subscription. So I need you to do that, right? And then there are others, people send me messages and they say, thank you so much for being on and for sharing, especially yesterday. None of the mainstream media would have carried a story like that, but we carried it. And so we're asking you, if you like what you are hearing, if you like these shows, we're asking you to, donate something to us, because for us to go live on various platforms at the same time, there's a software that I have to purchase to do that. And so for those of you who came on, and if this show means something to you and you are being enlightened by it, I'm asking you, donate something to us. And the email is there, and it's a PayPal account. You can donate to stepbystepfilms@gmail.com. Stepbystepfilms@gmail.com. That is the PayPal account that you can donate to help us to make sure that we can get this broadcast out to as many platforms as possible. That's what your donation will help us to do, because it takes a special software that I have to purchase annually in order to get this to happen. Oh my goodness. Oh, so I told you we have a special show lined up for you today: digitization, data, and distrust. How many of you like the content of everything Kali B is saying? Yes, the program yesterday was very informative. Kali B is from the UK. I see Welch is watching. I think Althea Hines is watching from the US. She's on Facebook. And to my regular Facebook fans, I say thank you. You're always there supporting, etc. Now, today, guys, we want to delve a little deeper in. And we're not, yesterday we talked a lot about the technical setup and the technical makeup of the digital ID. And our guest, Mr. Harper, was actually saying, yes, it's a necessary upgrade for Barbados, because right now we just have the laminated ID, and they want to make sure that we're up to scratch and connected with the rest of the world. But there are some grave issues with it, grave issues, technical issues, and he's basically sending them back to the drawing board to go fix it. And really saying to Barbadians, put some pressure on the government to fix it. And I think that's fair. I think that's fair. He's saying that there is something that needs to happen in terms of the encryption of the QR code, that it should not be, no one should be able to scan the ID with just a regular phone. That doesn't happen, so these are things that he was saying yesterday, and I agree with you, Cali B, that it was a very, very important show. And today we're going to be looking at another side of it. It's almost like what's going to happen is that we're going to be pulling the curtains back and looking at what is behind it, right? We want to look at what is behind it. Who are the players behind all of this? And so one of the questions that we want to ask today is, should people of faith sign up for the TRIDENT ID, which is Barbados' new digital ID, or even Jamaica NIDS, right? That's NIDS. It's called NIDS in Jamaica, or in Trinidad, I think it seems like they call it the EID in Trinidad. If I'm wrong on that, can somebody please correct me in the comment section? But online, that's what I saw. In Trinidad, it's called the EID, or any digital ID being rolled out over the entire Caribbean, right? So at the moment, they are rolling them out. There are many people of faith who see digital IDs, especially those that include biometrics, as a precursor to the end time world dictator known in Bible prophecy as the Antichrist. Many are convinced that there is an eventual link, and some believe they should be granted a religious conviction exemption from the digital IDs that employ biometrics. There are many who sincerely believe that if they comply with the governments in using the digital ID, that they would be enrolled in a global system of identification that directly links their body through biometrics to their ability to buy or sell. What do you think? Is this really the case? Now, there are others in the faith who the faith community and beyond, who believe that a cashless society, one that is totally digitized, is not an indicator of the end of the world or the mark of the beast. They say we shouldn't be paranoid in thinking that every technology that comes along is leading to the mark of the beast. What do you say? What do you say about that? And today we have with us Mr. Patrick TANNIS, and I just want to take the time to read his bio, because between these 2 days we've had these powerhouses of people coming on to the program. So I want to take the time to read his bio. He's a former head of Premier and Personal Banking, the executive vice president of Global Games Inc. He's board director of Aon. He's the executive director of the John Maxwell team. Not finished yet, He's the executive director of TANNIS Consultancy Inc., banking consultant to 2 successful digitally currency regimes, and of course, he's an ordained minister. Welcome to the Marcia Week Show, Mr. Tannis.
Hi, Marcia. Can you hear me well?
Yes, I'm hearing you loud and clear, and welcome, sir.
Welcome, ma'am. You're the one who's the Excelsior. I'm just the black boy from the plane. But
I
I
love
thank
it.
you for inviting me. Yeah, thank you
Yes.
for being here. Yeah.
Yes, I saw that you had posted in a chat where you were talking about people of faith and this digitization and saying that you would love to be able to speak to to people of faith. And I thought it would be great to have you on, and I'm so excited. Now I want to ask you. You would have watched the program yesterday or heard about it, and what's your general take on what Mr. Harper had to say yesterday?
First of all, he is a very accomplished individual. I know him very well. He is very well able to address the issues, and he did that extremely well yesterday. I would suggest to the public to rewatch it, right, and learn from it, because he's in that space. I've sat on several boards, and I can tell you everything that he said is true. It's accurate and sound. So please be guided by it. It's not like he is trying to pull punches at anyone. His heart is very innocent in that he's sharing just actual facts and data and information. That's extremely important in this season. And when you have people who are Caribbean people, Barbadians inclusive, who are accessing the information at the front end, right? Like Neil, you should really listen, because usually you have to pay a real lot of money to go and listen to guys like that. So for him to take an hour and 34 minutes and the 42nd seconds to share with you all of that information, along with you, Marcia, you don't hail yourself bigly, but you are a chartered accountant. You are also a financial professional. So it's people like yourself and Neil coming together who understand the financial processes, the checks and balances, and all of the information that the public needs to know. For you to sacrifice your time and do this is a great gift to everyone, and especially the kingdom people who are, of course, in need as well to hear these things.
Yes, Mr. Tanis, and thank you for that, because I know this is not part of the questions that we have planned, but I just want to ask you, in light of what you just said, our leader and the government, they said that we are not to, that people are fear mongering and politicizing the card. What do you say to Barbadians about that? Because here we had a professional person who is not aligned to any party. He lives overseas in Germany, and well accomplished, was sent by the EU back in, even when the other government was in, he was sent by the EU to Barbados to find out some of the issues with our cybersecurity. So, and he was able to present a report and so on. What do you say to Barbadians? Because this is really about Barbados. What do you say to Barbadians? Who do they listen to? We have the prime minister and the minister saying one thing on one hand, and here is Mr. Harper saying something on one hand. What would you say to Barbadians if you could speak to to Barbadians today? What would you say to them?
Well, first of all, a prime minister is an unusual person in that they have access to a lot of information that it is not accessible to the public. So sometimes, and in the case of Miss Morley and her predecessors, who I've worked with all of them, Barbados has good leadership. Let me say that Barbados has good leadership and has had good leadership from the time I knew Barbados. I mean, and here watching in history, we have good leaders, and the minister himself is also an excellent leader. The cabinet and the structure of cabinet allows for them to say, okay, we want to focus on a part of this card, for example, that allows us to get past a certain hurdle that they may not be able to discuss with the public.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, right, if a professional now, like Neil, and I'm not sure if I should say Dr. Neil, because I think he's doing his doctorate. But if you have a professional like him coming in to tell you, here are the gaps that exists with this process. He is all for digitization. He's all for the card because he uses it in Europe, where he's currently located. So he's selling the pluses, but he's saying here are the areas where there are gaps, right? I don't think the prime minister meant him when she is saying, okay, we have some issues that are fear mongering, because he wasn't fear mongering. So I can't see how any politician could say he was fear mongering, right? What I can say is that what the leaders can do is create a channel where persons like him can help you fix the areas that he saw, because those areas exist. And I endorse everything he said in that regard. Those areas exist of concern. And if I may use to answer the question, an analogy, in the banking structure, we know physical banks exist. Now, we knocked down a building in Rendezvous to build a new bank, which is, where the Caribbean head office was. And the building was down in what, a week? And it took them almost 2 months to take down the two safes that we had there, right? One safe is where we kept the cash. The other safe was the book vault. What do you put in the book vault? All the records of the individuals. And back then, it was all written on cards, and there were these ledger pages and stuff, and these ledgers had the account numbers, and you would write on the account number of the person. And these are records that now we want to transfer them to a digitized format. Now, if you had all that kind of security around the cash, which is the instrument that we were protecting because it's a bearer instrument, and then you had that stuff of that level of security, thick walls of whatever metal it was that protected the information on the customer. Now, and it took months to knock down those. I mean, months to knock down those safes. Months. If you had that kind of physical security, we should have even more. Whether it's encrypted or however, safeguards on the electronic information of customers and people. And that's what Neil is saying. And that's what the professionals are saying. You can't just say, okay, we're going to give you a card. And somewhere in the history of internet realities, there is this information stored on a computer, and then everybody can access it by hacking. It's not secure. And so he's saying, and rightfully so, we cannot not pay attention to the fact that these pieces of information, which are supposed to be secure, are not secure, right? And are hackable. And then if people hack them and take that information, the safety of Barbadians' financial transactions and their realities on the open spaces of the internet and so on are accessible and then stealable and then usable to defraud Barbadians. That is what his concern is. And it is a very legitimate concern. So if I were the government, what I would do is I would say to the professionals, look, let's meet with you, which is what governments are supposed to do. Let's meet with you. Let's try and fix the areas where there are vulnerabilities, right? Fly in Neil, sit down with him or Zoom in with him and say, look, help me, Barbados, fix the problem. That's what they should do. Now, when he is highlighting the problem, he is not attacking the government because he's endorsing the system of the digital ID card. But what he's saying is that these holes, these gaps exist. So let's fix those gaps. And that's a very solid and sound position, which I endorse completely.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tannis. Very well said. Now, to our matter at hand, I want to talk to you about a fully digitized system. So we're looking in the future, right? What does that look like? You're a banker, from your perspective, a fully digitized system. What does that look like?
So a digital bank is, and we have one that's actually being formed on Barbados soil at Sagicor, one of the more renowned banks. And a colleague of mine who is running that bank is a very highly skilled individual, and he is going to be setting up a bank where you're going to be able to sign on online, and there are different metrics. Funny enough, I don't want to expose the security issues that we use, because we also use them for when you apply for a visa online, the same metrics, right? And so the guys who are in the trade are going to tell you, yes, we do these tests and checks, and there's AI helping us to verify it's you online, and then the pictures and stuff add to that value. And so when you apply for a digital banking account, for example, There are safeguards, checks and balances are there to help with the financial movements on your account and the accounting standards that exist to protect you on the inside. But these metrics allow for us to know it's you, and the system of computers that network with each other and help us to verify the authenticity and accuracy of a transaction allows the individual, not your cardinal, the individual who's trying to transact something, to be safe and to know that their money is safe. So this is what the digital kind of entity is. What does it look like? You don't have to get up and go places to get stuff done, but you stay where you are. And 20 years ago, you see in the yellow pages, let your fingers do the talking. In this case, let your instrument, which is your card or whatever, do the spending, right? And you can transact and then have things sent to you by Amazon or whatever, and know that this is a secure system. Now, the security of the system is based on what we put in and how we protect what we put in. So it makes life easier. It makes life better potentially. And if there are, and I want to start to use this term, if there are ethical people on every side of this planning, implementation, and streaming process, then we are all happy. We're all safe. We're good.
Let me ask you something there, Mr. Tannis. You said that you talked about metrics. Are you talking about biometrics here?
Well, metrics inclusive of biometrics, because the biometrics are essentially in an attempt that when you show up in person now, that the person that you are seeing is actually the person that you have these digital records for. So it's a verification, right?
Verification.
So, yeah.
So in essence, you're saying that digitization on a whole, there is nothing really wrong with that. You're saying as a person, you're a person of faith, and there are people of faith who are watching. You're saying, taken by on a whole, digitization by itself is not a problem for a person of faith. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that, absolutely. I'm saying that digitization is not necessarily a problem if everyone is ethically and rightfully working in the advantages of the system to make it better and of the persons whose identity they're handling, right? Now, at the end of this stream, in scripture, we see that there is a being that tries to control the government. And the Bible calls it the last days. And traditional theologians accept that these last days have not come yet, that there is a being that takes up and wants to control governments and do what we know to be wicked things with that information. Now, if somebody tries to do that, they have access to a lot of information, Marcia, and they have unilateral access in ways that can be very dangerous to individuals, especially individuals who may not agree with them. So what do we see there? We see that there is prejudiced actions that could occur. And so looking down the road, there could be problems if you have unethical persons handling that information. But for the time being, if you want to tell me that you want to do transactions easier and you want to do good things and ethically sound things and righteous things, then yes, this is a good thing. Because, and I can draw an example, if someone, and here's where you can put a spin on even the chip in the card, right? If someone wants to steal your card and pretend to be you, right? What can stop them right now from printing one of the old ID cards, right? Putting your name on it, putting another face on it, giving the card to somebody and asking them to turn up. Now, they're not going to do it to you or me because people know Marcia Weeks and Patrick Tannis most likely. But suppose the person is not known and they have a few $100,000 in the bank and they forge your signature. And there's no picture in the bank system saying that you are this person. But they turn it with a fake ID card, which is easy to print. I just put some plastic on it and say, I'm that person.
Correct.
That's not going to be
So
something that
you're saying that digitization
Yeah.
being done by the right people with ethical, with the ethics are in place and so on, that there's basically nothing is wrong with that. You're saying as a person of faith, there's nothing to be worried about a digital system. The problem is, who are the players behind the digital system? Now, we would have gone through the last 3 years. We saw so many things happening, and a lot of people are very distrustful, which is part of our topic, that we're talking about digitization. We're talking about data. You talk about how much data the bank collects, and we're talking here now about distrust, because there's a lot of distrust, because we're not sure about who is behind all of this, who is pushing the digitization. And I want to talk to you about that. As a person of faith, let's pull the covers, let's kind of pull the blinds a little bit and look beyond what we are seeing on the surface, and let's talk about what's behind it, or who is behind it, you think?
Well, I think that in recent times, we've seen the emergence of entities that are operating in the international space, pressuring governments to remove standards that allow them to access our children, right? And from the time you start seeing that, and then governments are saying, okay, go ahead and ask questions to our young children in schools, then we have to put our walls up and say, no, what's going on? Who is controlling this? And then how did they get past the layers of government that would normally be able to pick up on this? You have the permanent secretaries, you have the officers in government, you have the minister, you have cabinet, you have the prime minister, you have the president of Barbados, you have all these layers. Then you have CARICOM. Why did we have something that was so intrusive that it got past all of those people, all of those auxiliaries, all of those stop gaps that they can access our children? And if they can access our children, what else are they after, right? And then we start asking those questions. Somebody has to start to say to us, here's what happened, here's not what's going to happen again, right? And here's what's protecting the other areas of government held information like this that will protect the people of Barbados, because that's what political processes are supposed to do. Put people there that we want, who can ensure that they are doing the job that we put them there for. Now, every politician is an employee of the people of that country, right? Especially in the Caribbean, where there are elections held. And as we know, democracy is a system and a method joined together. It's not either or, but it's a joint system and method to put people in place to represent us. And if those areas are being compromised, that we saw, like we did earlier in Barbados or last year or whenever, where those structures and those systems are bypassed, then we have a problem, because you are the ones in government that created this own mistrust. So if you're saying to us that there's hot air being blown around, or there are inaccuracies, and we are acting as though we have concerns, it is because you did not do your job in other areas, and we have those concerns because of that. So the parliamentarians and politicians have to step back and say, we have to find a way to be transparent to the people who are asking these questions, because let's face it, we dropped the ball on a very key and major issue, and the distrust is legitimate. Okay. It is legitimate.
So you're saying, I hear you, Patrick. So you're saying that a lot of the distrust has been growing over years, and especially what has just occurred. If we're speaking specifically of Barbados, that we've had some of those challenges with the IDB test, and not sure of the linkages between the present government and international bodies. And it's not just of Barbados, but it's throughout the region. We're seeing that it seems like we're no longer autonomous. We don't no longer, it's not the people that we elected who are really running our countries. So we're a little worried about our data, and how is it going to be used, etc. Now, I think that's a general worry that's in the society, but people of faith have an extra layer of concern, right? And you would hear people say, because in the act that was enacted for this this TRIDENT ID, one of the things in there says that if you don't have it, you're basically not going to be able to buy or sell. You can't do any transactions then if you don't have this ID, because they have not made it voluntary. Right, in Jamaica, there was a big pushback, and they had to go back to the drawing board, and they made it voluntary. Here at the moment, this TRIDENT ID, based on the act, you need it in order for you to make transactions. So some Christians are connecting that to Revelation, I think it's 13, the mark of the beast. Let's jump right in. So listen, so if we were to pull back the curtains, are we seeing the beast behind there? What do you think is happening? What's your thought?
Well, Marcia, I'm going to shock you and say, yes, we are seeing the beast behind there, right? And the government needs to understand that this is a position.
Hold on a minute. You went too far. You're saying, Patrick Tannis, the banker. You're a banker. You just said that the system there is on its own. It's a good thing to be digitized, but you're saying that you believe, as a believer, that when you pull the curtains, there is a boogeyman behind there, and that boogeyman is a beast.
I am saying that, yes. I'm actually saying it, and I'm saying it because, right, if you look at what is being described in the Bible as the mark of the beast, there is a component to that. I mean, there's 6 things that have to happen for this thing to work, and it's big things. It's not just in Barbados, huh? There's 6 big things, and I think I lost you there for a second. I'm not sure if everyone can hear me.
I'm right here. I'm right here.
Okay. But there is an unfortunate reality that has occurred, Marcia, where you have to listen to the people who you're serving. And if the people are having concerns about the card, and then you're going to say to them, you can't buy or sell without it, that's actually scripture that is echoed in Revelation 13. And it says that, and it says clearly, and he causes the both small, great, rich, and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark, which is not the digitization card or digitization process, but no man can buy or sell without this thing, right? And so, as you're saying, using language like that, right, it makes people who are aware of what the scripture says to go on the defensive, because they're going to ask questions, they're going to have concerns. And that's why I'm saying that there is a reflection of that attitude. The attitude of the Antichrist is that you do as I say, or I will shut you down and shut you out. Now, that's not right. It's not a good thing, right? And we need to know that the governments of the world are who will institute the mark of the beast, right? What will happen that will cause that transition from people who are elected that to people to be bowing under pressure to things that does not line up with a religious position of the Christian church, right? What is that transition? And we can discuss that freely today.
Wow. That is deep, because I know that when they had the whole thing of the injection, and we can only call it injection on the show because of YouTube, that there's some people who said that they thought that was the mark of the beast, and but then there were quite a number of people of faith who lined up and took it. I heard quite a number of I heard there are people of faith who have gone up and signed up for for this ID, the TRIDENT ID. What are your thoughts about that? Is it that it is the mark, or is it a further step towards the mark?
Well, like I said, there's 6 things that have to happen for the mark of the beast to take place, and it's pretty heavy stuff. This is light stuff. This is just to make sure that people are well identified, as I said before. And so this is not the mark of the beast. This is actually taking this card and using the security benefits of the card makes one able to transact better. I'm all for the card, right? But when you start using language that says you can't buy or sell without it, which technically is not true. That's not true. Because what about your passports? Can't you use your passport? That's another form of ID. Why can't you use your driver's license? Why can't you use those too? Why must it be this card? Why must it be this card? And why are you using that language? From the time you start going there and putting the onus on persons to take this card under pressure, right? And threatening them that they cannot carry out normal transactions without it, that's the language that is found in Revelation. So that's not the language to use. Sell the benefits to the public, rather, and see if the public that you've educated with the hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars every year that we pay in taxpayers' dollars can rationalize the benefits of it and see the point of taking this card. And that's the problem. The language, the threats, that's what the public does not need. How many of us saw a woman, or a woman saw a guy and said, marry me or else? That's not the language to use, right? That's not the language to use, right? I think if you want people to make a decision that is beneficial to them, you don't threaten them. And that's my point here. That the threat that it's inherent in the accessing of the card and using the card for good use, if the benefits are there, sell those benefits, you know. And if the benefits are not there, then you tend to find that a threat is not necessarily the best way to convince people, you know. It's not the best way. And that's what my point is.
So you said that there are 6 things that must happen before the mark, you know, is actualized.
Yes.
Now, what someone is saying here, asking a question, they said, what about the chips being embedded under people's skin and being used for many transactions? Could that be the mark of the beast? Is that because you know, are we moving from a card and then to the skin? Is it that there are steps leading to it?
Well, there are steps, but the chip itself is not the mark of the beast. Huh? The mark of the beast is a very, very complex thing.
Why do you say the chip is not the mark of the beast?
Right. So the chip cannot be the mark of the beast for several reasons, right? A chip on its own under your skin, you can't sell with it. Don't forget, you have to bite and be able to sell, right? So you can't buy or sell. A chip may allow you to purchase something, but you can't sell with it. That's one. Secondly, a chip is not going to offend God, right? It's not going to offend God because some people may have to have stuff near their heart, for example, right? And so the embedding of a piece of technology on your heart that saves your life, that may be controlled in the future with a chip, right, is not the mark of the beast. It says that very clearly, that the mark of the beast has to have a number attached to it. The number itself is not necessarily 666. That's the problem, right? But what does that mean? And we know what it means. We actually know what it means to some extent, and we know what the technology has to be able to do. It has to be able, and I want to start to drop some stuff here now on you, right? If that's all right with you. It has to be, it has to be able to mess with your spirit. Now, we know that right now, some business leaders are investing in technology to read your brain waves, right? And what we did in the 80s, and I can say we, is that we were able to design financial concepts for buying and selling. Yes, bankers are into the future in a major way for buying and selling that will not just read your brain waves, but allow for fusion of your neural network into what is the ability to not just read those things, but fuse them into components that can interact by RFID or internet signals powering those RFID readers and read your thoughts. Now, if people can read your thoughts, and that's a one-way transaction, they can also upload thoughts into you. That's the danger of the mark of the beast, right? And it gets even more interesting. Yes, these things can track you and see where you are and so on. But if they can read your thoughts, imagine somebody can see what you're thinking. Now, several multi-million companies, right, multi-million-dollar companies are investing in those reading of brainwaves. This is all on the internet, so I'm not telling people what they can't go and see and Google. But the reason is why. Why do people want to be able to read your thoughts? We've, back in the 80s, designed stuff that could tell us that if you can read people's thoughts, it's a transaction one way. Because your neural network, you have a myelin sheath, inside your skin, right? And there are electrons jumping around, and it's powered by cations and anions. We don't get into technical on the biological side, but anything that you are experiencing is transmitted up and down those nerves, and the brain waves that occur. Literally, we know right now that people can see what you're thinking by being able to read those brain waves, and actually in certain instances, without connections to robotic devices, you can guide things because the brain waves can be read, and you can move robotic tools around because of that. That tech exists right now. And so from the time we start playing with accessing your brain waves, the Bible is clear about you having a spirit and a soul. And if people can access through your brain waves, your spirit and your soul, don't forget, Jesus told Nicodemus, you must be born again. And then he explained, you must be born of the Spirit. In other words, the Holy Spirit has to be able to solely access your spirit and bring you to the experience of being born again. If a human being can access your spirit and tamper with it, you can't be born again because they mess it up. And if you can't be born again, then one can see that there is the potential for those harsh judgments for taking something that can track you, control your spending or monitor it, and limit you from accessing the market space to eat and live, right? And then be programmed to worship something other than the true and living God.
I see where you're going with that. And why you're saying that is more akin to the mark of the beast is because it can control you, and then you end up starting to worship this beast, because the scripture, there part of the scripture that talks about worship, right? And so you're saying that the chip under your skin doesn't lead you to worship. Is that what I'm understanding you?
Correct. The chip under your skin does not in any way lead you to worship anything, right? The chip could actually be something that allows you to access a door, right? It can allow you to access medication in the event that an ambulance comes to you and you're in a state where you can't speak, you don't have your correct ID on you, but they need to find out your blood type. Instead of sticking you with a needle and then trying to process that, if you have a chip underneath your skin that has that information and they can read it, then it could save your life, right? Now, the Bible is not a book of superstition. The Bible is not a book of chance. One of the 6 things that has to happen for this to happen in the way that the Bible describes it,
you mean the mark of the beast?
Yes, the mark of the beast now. Yeah, transitioning to that. Thank you for that, Marcia. Yes. To the mark of the beast is that there has to be a global position that stops everyone from being able to use anything other than this mark so you can eat, so you can drink, right? Now, that's part of your life cycle. A global control, and it says both the great and the poor, the rich and the poor, the great and the small, everyone has to take this mark. And this mark will lead people to think it's okay somehow to worship this beast, right? And Christians, back in the days of Nebuchadnezzar, the 3 Hebrew boys, they said, nah, we're not here to worship anything other than God. Now, and that's where we're starting to say, be careful with the language you use to your citizens if you want them to comply, because these are beings that God created with a free will. And if you have a free will, you can worship who you want. Now, the church prospers when there's freedom. But if there's draconian stuff happening and you're telling people, I'm forcing you to do this, and they can't choose, you didn't make an appeal to them. You didn't make an argument to them, quote unquote. You didn't put to them the benefits of doing this. Rather, you're dictating to them, take this now. That's what I meant when I said this has to be language that is associated with beast behavior. Because the guys will force you to take and here is where it gets interesting. In Matthew 12, where Jesus speaks, right, and tells people, because he healed someone with a withered hand. Think about what I'm telling you. And then they said, you did this by the power of Beelzebub. You know what Beelzebub literally means? Lord of the dunghill, the S word that we use now. How come all of a sudden every movie that you watch, every single one, the S word must be in it, whether it's a movie to children, adults, it's being mandated to be put in that movie. And we as Christians don't like that. But do you know what the S word is? We know about curses and blessings. I'm dropping it on you, Marcia, today, right? When you hear that, you're inviting what? A spirit being into your space. When you say it, right, you're giving an incantation, right? We in the church know the Bible says, right, that what do you say? Remember what it says about what you say, right? The power of life and death is in the power of the tongue. What you say means something. So when you pray to God, what do you use? Your mouth, right? So when you speak certain things, there is something that happens in the spirit realm. Now, we as Christians know that. So I'm speaking to the saints now, right? Some people in the non-saint space will not understand that as much as we accept that. That's why we make professions of our faith. When you go before God and you marry a woman, woman marries a man, right? And there's a man and a woman marriage, which is what God ordained marriage to be. You make oaths before God, right? You say things. And those things are supposed to mean something, right? And you ask for God to help you. So help me, God. You make an oath in court. You say something. Speech is important. And so when speech is that you speak these words, the S word, you hear it on movies, you hear it everywhere. It is a curse that you're generating. The Lord of the dunghill is who you're calling on. This is interesting, right?
Yeah, very, very interesting. So Patrick, you're saying here that from what you're saying, very interesting actually, that data in the end time, because we already we move the curtain and we look, and behind that is a whole lot of data, and you're thinking that there's something nefarious happening behind there, possibly happening behind there. And so the question is data going to be of high priority in the for this end time, or how
Absolutely.
important is data?
Absolutely. That's why I encourage Christians to get into politics, because people who don't know what the Bible says will be misled into just opening up your doors to give away your data, the data of their people. But if there is full access of every piece of data, then there's no safety for you, because that's where the market space is going to be for transacting business in the digital realm.
So
So we
it's
have to
all
get ahead of
about
the curve.
data. It's all about data. You
It's all about
believe
data.
there's going to be, that's where the battle is about data. It's about data, why we're digitizing. So do you think then that Christians should opt out of this system that seem to be collecting so much data and not knowing, who is really behind it? Or you have an inclination of, who might be behind it and how they might use the data?
Well, you that's why you have to elect politicians that have an understanding of what this could be when you get people harvesting your data, that they can sit down in a room and defend you where you are not. You are in the room, you're not at the United Nations or wherever, people are telling you to, okay, well, let's access your people's data. You have to have people who are aware that when they sit down with these people, that they can say, listen, I want to find out what this is all about. What is this all about? How is this going to affect my people in the long term? Don't just take nay a year for an answer. Dig deep and find out, because we sent you there. We're the ones who sent you there. So yes, it's all about data. Yes, it's about how that data is used. It is important that this data is secured and then it's not misused. And then you count to treaty, if you want to say, count to treaty with things that protect your people. Don't just sell us off like we're the sheep, or sorry, the pigs that ran off of the Gadarene Hill. You would know what that means. Don't just sell us off like that. We are worth something. We are worth something. Our freedom is worth something, right? And our forefathers fought that for a reason. Don't just sell us off. So yes, we want to find out, where is this data going to be used? So I agree with all the persons who are asking those questions. Where is this data going? And we have to start asking those questions now, building the foundation that protects these things now. So a fight to get that information now in our hands is not a bad fight. It's a good fight. It's a good fight, right? One thing I do know is that the government leaders don't know everything. That's why we have professionals like yourself, Marcia, and Neil. We have to have people then that feed into the process and advise them, because we are in the space. We are professionals in the space. We know about what's going on. We know about some of the intentions. We can see in the Bible this is where it's headed, unless we say something to delay it. To delay it.
Mm-hmm. 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 The delay. Oh wow, this is I'm listening to you, and this is very deep, because they are harvesting data right now. Everything, all of your data would be in this one card, they're saying, right? And I think that they really need to listen, as the president of the DLP, and this is not a promotion of them, but I think he's right on this, that you really need to listen to the people, because it is their data, that you are collecting. There is even something inside of the act talks about your fingerprints and all of that. So there's a biometric side to this whole thing. So I think that our leaders need to really, really stop and think about what it is that they're asking people to do. And as you said, the language in why, if I don't have this, I can't do this. I can't shop, I can't do anything. I was thinking, Patrick, about the Industrial Revolution, that even with that happening, you know what? There's so many things that have changed, but we can still see elements of it. That's, they have the big trucks that hold the ground, but you can still go and buy a hoe, right? You had typewriters that used to sit down and type, but I can still
Excellent.
type up my computer. Not true. I can cook on a gas stove, as well as they have the electric stove, as well as I can still burn wood outside. You know what I mean? So give us the options. What is this? What is this feeling that I have to do this thing? I have to do it. And that is that when you look at the act, I don't know how many of us who have one of the persons who are watching have read that act and read what it is actually saying. Patrick, and I think that is what is causing people not. I think they have about 90,000 cards that have not been picked up, and they have 40,000 people who got their cards, but it's not activated because there are too many questions. People are concerned about their data and how it is actually going to be used. Somebody has a question here, Patrick, that says, are you talking about CRISPR? Is the CRISPR technology really setting up for this, for the mark? Is it part of the whole process of the mark of the beast?
Well, I don't know what CRISPR is. Forgive me, but I don't know what that means. Help me to find out what that means there real quick.
Right. Well, I will try in my layman's term to explain it, but it has to do with the DNA, which is why a lot of people did not take that thing, right? I can't say it because of YouTube, and I don't want to lose any more channels. So I probably should leave this one out, and I will send you a link, or if somebody wants to write something about it in the chat about CRISPR, then I can put it up, but I'm not going to say it. All right, but I don't want to lose my
understand,
channel.
Marcia. But what I can say is that, like, again, I love our Prime Minister. I love our leaders. I love the cabinet and the MPs and the senators and the government, the civil servants. We love them. This is not about, okay, we don't like you and we don't like how you're doing something. I think that when you see as a leader, people have objections, stop and listen to them. That would be my advice. Stop and listen and ask them some more questions and find out what it is that they're concerned about, because you're leading them. You're asking them to submit to a process that they don't like, they have concerns about. If you are confident that it's the right thing, it's not hard to sell the right thing. Ask questions, right? So, when we had the process of when we were locked down and so on, and certain things were done, right? Everybody was informed that this was the way to go. And some people had to travel to go and see their children. And so they took the thing and they flowed with it, But now that more information is coming out, questions are being asked. So what do you do, right? Answer those questions. If the questions point to a mistake, a huge mistake was probably made, we also have to know that too. So what I'm saying is that it's all about honesty. and transparency, and the information, the actions that were made. There's one thing about the Bible I can tell you. I can tell you Jesus is Lord. I can tell you the Bible is authentic. And it doesn't write from a position of incorrectness. It writes from a position of knowing everything. And when we pay attention to what's in there, we don't go wrong. We can't go wrong. We as humans make mistakes. I make a lot of mistakes, and I have to repent constantly, right? People say, Patrick, you made a mistake here. You know what? If I did, I have to look back and say sometimes I'm sorry. I know I must be thinking, I must be the man that must have said more sorries than any other human. Because if it was wrong, it was wrong. If I was wrong, I was wrong. And you have to be that way, especially if you have found that God is positioning you more and more to be a leader. You have to be able to say, I'm sorry, I was wrong, right? Let me try something else. Let me do it differently. Let's remove ourselves from that direction and change direction, change course. You know what? That's the right way to do it, right? And Marcia, this is why I would say, if the government or governments across this side of the world made mistakes in any regard, inclusive of what we reference, let's all be real and honest about it and say, hey, you know what? We all made mistakes. I made a mistake, and let's fix it. But stuff that has happened that has negatively affected people, and then people are concerned about it going forward. You can't just dismiss the people's concern. Let's find a way to answer those questions and come back right. Do more due diligence, get more information, find out from more people what we need to do to make it right, and make sure we don't go the route of going the wrong way.
Makes sense. Patrick, we have another 4 minutes on the show, and time has gone by so quickly, but I want to now just ask you, seeing that data is really where the fight is at this moment, and you believe that the Antichrist is going to use this data, right? Well, and the mark of the beast system, there is some connection with data. That's one thing that has come out of the show. Data, the Antichrist and this is that totalitarian control, that dictatorship. We're saying that the data is going to be gold for them. What do you say to church leaders? How do church leaders guide the sheep in protecting their data?
First of all, let's give a shout out to all the church leaders, and specifically to one who does a great job here in Barbados, Apostle Lucille Beard, right? People who stand up daily for the rights of the people. Her whole family's involved and stuff like that. Husband, herself, her children, right? And there are many others, but I can highlight her, right? I can say to the church leaders, first of all, we appreciate you, right? Now, let's get together and share more information like what you're sharing, Marcia. Support what you're doing. Let's get the information out there. And there's a lot of information that we can share with the church leaders, and they're doing a phenomenal job. Let's lift them up and get the information to them. Church leaders, you need to hear from us. Contact us if we've missed you out, and let's get the information to your hands so where you can know, you can inform your people, right, about what is going on. And you see that stuff in the Bible, you can't ignore it. The Bible is the word of God. You can't ignore it. If the Bible says it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And look, it says no one can buy or sell without this thing. And it says in the last days, guess what? It couldn't be back in the time of the Romans. Could not. Because the whole world was not under that kind of rule. The Romans only ruled one part of Asia Minor and Asia and the Middle East. So we're talking about the rest of the world. It's only now that this can happen. So this is a scripture that has been unfulfilled. But we can see it being fulfilled now with this data, this information, because with the information they have on everybody, then they can program or try to get a hold of everybody to accomplish this. This is a now thing, Marcia, and we have to be careful.
So let me ask you, I know I said I was the last, but you said something there that I have to ask another question, and we're 1:59. But I want to ask you, because data is so important, and this ID, the TRIDENT ID, is collecting data, and we've established that there are some issues with it. What do you say to the average Christian? You spoke to the Christian leader. What do you say to the average Christian concerning this TRIDENT ID that is collecting data, and you believe that there's some issues with it? What do you say?
Be vocal, start to speak about it, and be very clear in how you speak. Be vocal right now. Raise your concerns if you have any. That's what I would say.
So you're calling on Christians everywhere, whether wherever you are in the Caribbean, to be vocal about this at this moment, because data is where the battle is at. Data is what the Antichrist is after. Data is what the beast is going to use. Right, from my understanding, from what you're saying, and so data is important. So Christians who are listening in Barbados, please give a knock on your parliamentary representative office door and let them know you are concerned about your data. And this card in particular, go back to the drawing board with it. And as Mr. Tannis is saying, there is nothing on the face of it that is wrong with digitization. There's nothing on the face, is what is behind it. It's a system of control that is behind it. And at the moment, there is great distrust about that because of how issues have been handled in the past. Okay. So again, Christians and those of faith, because I hear people as well in the Rastafari community saying they are not taking it. And because they understand that the spiritual war is going to end up at data. Right? It's very important. That's why, isn't this powerful, guys? I want to end, but listen, Patrick, you turn on something in me, man, because this is why the fight is on, and this is why every country of the world, Patrick, is asking for data right now. And they want this data by 2030. You all hearing this? You all hearing this, Latanya? You hearing this? Every country of the world is wanting data right now, and they want it by 2030. And I wonder, man, give me 5 more minutes of your time, man. This thing turning on, man. Why you think they want this data by 2030?
It's because there are timelines that they set, right? And Marcia, we're going to have to dive deeper because everybody is not a Christian. People access spirit information, right? And there are witches and warlocks and all kinds of people who are posing as people who want to get access to that data. And we as Christians have an obligation to expose what is dark and what is not right and what and potential problems. We have an obligation. And so we can't just sit back and let people access our stuff and use it how they want, and then we complain at a level where there's no change, there's no getting ahead of the curve to stop things from happening that are wrong and nefarious. We have to stand now and make those challenges now. Every Christian everywhere in every country on every space on this planet has to get up now and start to ask those questions so that we can retard or remove or resist the progress of evil from happening. Because you see that data? That data is not going to be used for good in the hands of bad people. In the hands of good people, good will come out of it. But you know what? In the hands of bad people, if we set a system in motion where we can't tell where it's going to be, if the system has loopholes where there are ethical concerns that could arise, if there's a change of a person at a desk that's holding back, say bad from good, right? We have to be able to stand now and say, listen, we need to close that area and write it policy that protects the people from a bad person sitting at that desk and using it out of sync with what the people's wishes are. We have to fight now. We have to ask questions now. We have to progress this challenge now to a place where we know that we have done what is right to put checks and controls in this system of acquiring data and how it is used in the future. It is a fight that we have to pursue now.
And that is the issue with this, with the ID, that Mr. Tannis once again is saying he doesn't have a problem with with digitizing anything. It is that there are problems with the checks and the balances that are in place and the uncertainty of how that data is going to be used, because in the end time it's all about data. Church leaders, are you hearing? Christians, are you hearing? Those are people of faith, are you hearing? It is a war about data. And someone just gave me sent this question here about the 5G. Patrick, I want to close, but the people won't let me close. This 5G thing, is this connected to this gathering of data in 2030?
Again, right? 5G is able to move data quickly, more quickly than ever before. As a matter of fact, it was affecting planes coming in, and the FAA asked the 5G guys, hey, listen, we need to do some stuff to amend the ability of this thing to affect planes. 5G in itself is just technology. It's just technology. But because it can move stuff faster, right? People are asking questions. And Marcia, you've just opened up another component of another show, because the 5G argument, right, with the persons from other countries who wanted to use that, right? Did you find out what is it that they're using this information, this high-speed stuff to do, right? We have to ask those questions. It's not the 5G itself, it's who's behind it, and what are the intentions to move stuff at literally at blinding speeds that you don't even know what happened, right? They can analyze a phone through that, and AI can start to speak to your stuff and pull data away at speeds that you don't know what it stole, what it did. So people out there saying, oh, 5G, 5G, they don't know what they're asking, but they know they have a concern. But we can turn to them and pull in those guys in the tech fields and say, in that specific area, listen, that stuff, right, can move stuff at blinding speeds, right? And because of that, move your data at blinding speeds. Yeah, that's the concern. And sometimes you're not able to track what happened. You know, if you don't know what happened, you can't monitor it. You don't know what happened.
Wow. This is something else. This is something else. Listen, we have to come back, and guys, listen, this is not a show where we're knocking the government and trying to. The whole thing is that there are challenges that are there with the card. It's collecting data and it's not secure. You should not be able to use your cell phone, as the man said yesterday, and be able to scan the QR code. That's not how it works.
Exactly.
That's not how it works.
Exactly.
Protect the people. Data is gold, the leaders. Protect your people, spiritual leaders. What are you telling your people? How much do the pastors know about data and how to protect their congregation
Exactly.
from this? You know, I think that those kinds of things is important. You know, as a Christian, as a spiritual person, how are you protecting your data in this day and time? And we saw from the show yesterday how many 17 government agencies were hacked in the last couple of years under this government because they don't have the cybersecurity checks and balances and the systems in place. Over 17, including the Attorney General's office.
Marcia, if I can say it right, some of my colleagues in another part of my life, right, we brought in guys that were able to advise this government. We brought in the top ethical hackers. We're here in Barbados, my colleagues. And we were able to show them the gaps and try to help them to fix the gaps, right? Yes, they received some of that advice, but we've got homegrown guys that can do that too. I wrote proposals to the government to fix many, many things. And all I can say, Marcia, is that we who are patriots, we love this country, we love the people. And all we want to do is make sure that the people of Barbados, these trusting, loving, wonderful people, are safe. They're protected. They're like sheep. They don't deserve to be, frisked by international villains. We have to protect our people. And if any government cannot see the value of their people and the need to protect them, then, who are you? I want the government leaders to ask themselves this question. Who am I? Are you a sheep in wolf's clothing, or are you a wolf in sheep's clothing? Answer that question.
A good way to end the show. Thank you all for watching. And Latoya Fleming is saying we need another show. Keep educating the people so that we can all bring about change and make informed decisions. Very, very important. And I'm going to make another appeal to everybody who is watching to help us to produce shows of this nature, where I just up to yesterday purchased a new system that allows me to be able to go out on as many platforms as possible. It costs money and nobody pays me to do this, but just to even cover the cost of that show, that system that I just paid for yesterday, I'm going to ask a donation to PayPal. right? PayPal, Step by Step Films. I feel like a preacher today, begging. Step by Step Films at gmail.com. But we need the help. Latoya, everybody, Alex, use your PayPal account, Wayne, everybody, Angela, everybody, and let's and help me to make sure that we stay open, we stay on air, and be carrying the message that other people don't want to carry. All right. God bless you all. Thank you so much, Mr. Tannis. This has been extremely informative. Thank you very, very much. And I see you guys again on Wednesday at 1 o'clock. God bless. Bye
God
bye.
bless you. Bye bye.